This story is about an important part of my healing journey and how my time and support network at university gave me the courage to confront and educate my parents. I'm sharing it because I want to see change. Dad looked as if he could cry, but he was calm. I continued to speak. It was a strange contrast from the awkward birds and the bees talk that I received in primary school, where sex was only presented as a reproductive activity. Finally, I was telling my dad what happened to me years before that talk. These raw details would make him and everyone else who would hear my story far more uncomfortable than any school sex ed class. Despite how most teachers or parents feel when discussing sex, I didn't feel uneasy or nervous as I spoke. I felt honest, strong, and empowered to state that my case of sexual abuse was handled poorly. I told Dad that it wasn't my responsibility to tell him this, but it was necessary to get the recognition that I deserved. I had freed myself from the guilt and anxiety that lingered throughout my childhood, teen, and early adult years. I continued to speak. A few months before this, I sat in Mina's room, preparing myself for a phone call to Mum. I was back in her room the next day to debrief and to share my sense of relief and freedom after that call. Mina was the strongest part of the amazing network of passionate and supportive people who surrounded me at my residential hall. The Consent Matters module, which all residents completed upon moving in, created an environment where sex and consent were openly discussed, as were the support services made available to people in need. These conversations with fellow residents and information made available to us gave me a sense of urgency to free my internal struggle and to start the conversation with my parents. I taught them about positive consent culture and the important role that professionals can play when dealing with the aftermath of a sexually violent incident. I had given my parents their first real sexual education lesson and encouraged them to create a culture of consent within their own generation through verbal communication. I recognised that it was a lack of education and not a lack of love that caused the improper management of my sexual abuse. I hold no anger towards my parents, and I am empowered to now be their educator. I will continue to speak. These conversations, which were my first and hardest steps, are complete. The ball is rolling. I will make more people feel uncomfortable by sharing my story and force people to question why this is still happening in our society. Ignorance has allowed sexual violence to survive. It's time to stop. I want future generations to look back on these horrific stories with a far greater sense of outrage than any other form of gender oppression. I believe that I and the survivors I stand with here have been gifted with this opportunity and strength to speak out and work towards a society where sexual violence is history. We will continue to speak.